So I was talking with a friend the other day, and we were talking about financial stuff like I do all the time. And she gave me the most interesting question that I wanted to kind of share my answer with her and with whoever else would be interested. The question, so to speak, is do you need a budget in order to create a financial plan? Like, should anybody have a budget, a month, a spending plan, whatever you want to call it, and maybe even be sticking to that budget in order to then start a financial plan that has more of that long term, retirement planning, paying for kids' college, um, covering medical costs, like all the different things that you think of over the long term, buying a new home, so on and so forth. And my short answer is that I didn't. I did not have a budget before I started my own financial strategies and my own financial plan. And actually, for me, it worked out super well because setting up that plan, those strategies, actually helped me then to have a budget. So let me tell you a little bit more of the story. When my husband and I first got married, I had tried budgeting a bunch of times before. I'd written down every single expense and tried to limit, this part of my budget or do that or different things. And, for whatever reason, I actually found some of those written lists recently. I ended up recycling them, but it was a reminder yeah, I didn't really stick to even my plan when I was writing every single expense down in like a little book or whatever. And so then when we got married, we came up with this idea, let's pick a few things that are 100% within our control and let's budget for those. So for example, you can't really control what your electric bill is. Yeah, sure, you can turn off your lights, but when you're not in a room or that kind of thing. But your electric bill, you get it, you have to pay it. You can't not pay it. But things like eating out, we could choose whether to eat out or not. Groceries, we can choose what we buy at the grocery store. Sure, we still have to spend money, but we picked 2 or 3 things that we knew if we just did well with these items, we would do okay. And we never really paid attention. We just kind of, we always were fine. We weren't struggling or anything, but we also weren't super strict about it. So we didn't really have a budget. And actually, I think after a few months, we'd even forgotten about let's try to limit our, eating out to this and our groceries to that or whatever it was. Then many years later, I want to say 7 years after then, without really having a budget, those full 7 years, we met a certified financial planner. We sat down with him and we figured out, okay, we want to be able to have money when we retire. We were entrepreneurs at the time. There was nobody that was going to save for our retirement for us except for us, right? Maybe Social Security we could count on a little bit, but it was up to us. So we sat down with this guy and we figured out, here's what we need. Here's what we want to set aside in order to have something, at least to have that there when we're at that point. To be doing something at least. And in the meantime, what's cool about the strategy that we worked with him is that it's not just there for when we're 60, but we can actually use the same strategy between now and when we're 60. I was in my late 20s at the time. I didn't want that money just hidden away until I was 60. I wanted to have access to it. So anyway, that's kind of a side note. We started setting that money aside on a regular basis every single month. The first of the month, that money left our bank account and went somewhere else. And that was fine. But that also made me think okay, we have this much left over for the month. We have to make sure we're doing the best that we can with that amount. And as I was thinking about, how do we create a budget? How are we going to make sure we stick to it this time? All those kinds of things. How do we create a spending plan if that's better for you than budget? I ended up coming across a fun app that helped us to create that budget. In case you're wondering, it's called You Need a Budget. That's the app that we use. And we've had that app now for a long time. I think like maybe 4 years or so, maybe 5. We just had our annual renewal of our subscription. Not a huge expense, but it happened, and we're continuing to use that budget. But so that's kind of our story with budgeting. The main point here is that we did not have a budget before we started having a plan for what we wanted our money to be doing for us, how much we wanted to have later on, what we could set aside so that it was there later on, all those kinds of things. And that this guy helped us set that up. His name is Mark, if you wanted to know. And that's been super helpful for us. And in fact, having the plan helped us then have a budget and actually like take that budget a lot more seriously. To now, we know here's about how much we're going to spend on groceries. Here's about how much we're going to spend on our restaurants. But if you follow the rules of You Need a Budget, you can roll with the punches, and the budget's not something that's like static and you have to stick to. Things like that, and take it month at a time, that sort of thing. And it's really actually kind of simple. Our budget is, there's not much to it. Not like a ton of line items or anything like that. But I'm starting to get beside the point. I would just ask you to consider, do you need a budget before you have a financial plan? Or maybe just possibly, could a financial plan, financial strategies, could thinking through the long term help you then come up with what you want to do on a month-to-month basis as or every other week basis if you get paid bi-weekly or whatever it is? How could the long-term vision, that long-term goal, that thinking long-term help you come up with something for the short term and maybe actually enjoy that? As you're going. So anyway, that's my little take on, do you need a budget before you have a financial plan? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Please comment below this video, or if you know me, send me a note. I'd love to hear your own story of how you worked with, budgeting or spending plans versus longer term financial plans or financial strategies, how those things developed for you. If you are still looking for one or both of those things. I don't necessarily do budget counseling, but I love coming up with long-term financial strategies for people. So if you'd love to talk about that kind of thing, that's what I do every day, day in and day out. And I love kind of crunching the numbers and figuring things out. And it's because of that guy, Mark, that I found that I love to do that. So there you go. That's my little take on it. Please share your thoughts. Continue to think about your money. And as we say with Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, let's work together to cut through all the financial noise out there and develop financial strategies that are simple, sustainable, and that your grandma would be proud of.